So today we are going to be going over kind of what we're mining currently. So we had an update video maybe 2 days ago and that was on Parasite Pool, but I've decided to change things up a little bit. We're still going to be mining mainly to Parasite Pool, but this video is more of an update of kind of what we've been mining on other things as well, because Parasite Pool held most of the hash rate with all of these Bitaxe miners that you see here. We unplugged this one just to redo the thermal paste. The node QX we haven't unplugged, but we also have one of the gammas right here that is replaced the thermal on that as well. And also they've been getting relatively, I'd say, dusty through the actual grills and on a lot of these grills that you see there, or the heatsink, sorry. And I just thought it would be a good idea to clean those out. So whilst we're cleaning them out, we're obviously going to switch them over to different pools, because there's not really much point in pointing your hash rate towards any given pool as long as you're submitting shares. It doesn't really matter what pool you're going to be mining to. But in today's video, I know that we normally focus on solo mining Bitcoin, but there are other coins that you can mine, like digibyte and Bitcoin Cash, which we're kind of going to be looking into. And there is also options for pool mining, which we did a video about maybe 2 weeks ago, I think. And that was around pool mining with all of our Bitaxes and Node QX and the Zybit 8 that you see here. Now this one has kind of had some reset problems that I don't know how to fix quite yet. And also the LCD, I don't know how you get that to stay on, because it does stay on technically when you power it up, but I don't know how you get it to actually stay on. Also, one thing that I noticed as I was looking at this just then, these power connectors right there, those copper ones that you're seeing, I'm pretty sure that if you touch that and make a connection, that is directly probably going to electrocute you. If somebody can let me know in the comments if that is safe. If not, we'll try and put some just glue around it so it doesn't actually get anyone electrocuted. But yeah, I've been having some reset problems on these, so we're probably going to have to look into that. I know that obviously it's not open source either, so there's not really much in terms of troubleshooting any of the problems on it, at least with the Bitaxe and the Node QX, the Hex. It is all open source, so people can actually help you with it. And that's one of the main things that open source kind of helps with, is you can look through the source and figure out where there are problems with the actual operating of these systems. But I'm sure it's something just to do with the AXOS in terms of the resets, or maybe it's just the overclocks that we have on it is resetting it a little bit differently. And then over here, because we've lost loads of space on the desk, basically, we have the Avalon Nano, which is still open case. We haven't been bothered really to put the case back on that. And then the Bitaxe Hex, which has actually been running smoothly. That hasn't had any resets recently. But yeah, we're going to be going through kind of all of these things, what we're mining, how we're mining it, just another kind of update video just to see how it goes, and then we'll probably give you an update in a month on how that's going. It's going to be some interesting mining strategies going on in this video, so stick around and we'll get over to the computer now to explain it all. So we are going to be changing a couple of things which you've already kind of gone through and changed a bunch of them. Mainly just because I know that the odds of hitting a block are so low that it doesn't really matter what pool we're on. And we have the opportunity to switch it up a little bit when it comes to mining, just to keep things fresh. And, you know, it's good content to show different kind of methods of mining Bitcoin or any other coins realistically. So we're still sticking mainly with Parasite Pool. One thing that I am going to alter, so we have the Node QX++, that's going to stay on there. The Hex is going to come off. The Gamma, or the both Gammas are going to stay on there, same with the other two Bitaxes that you have there. And then we're going to take the Zybit 8 off. So if you haven't really watched the channel for that long, you'll also know that we have a Avalon Nano, which we kind of left that alone for a little bit. And that's kind of been steadily mining in a different location, which we'll get onto a little bit later. But one of the main things that we can see on Parasite Pool is that it obviously needs to hit a block to get a payout. And you can just see this listed here on the payout section of the pool. So you need 10,000 sats to withdraw it. There's also no way to estimate how many sats you'll get if the pool actually hits a block. So that would be interesting if they could add that on. Because if the pool hits a block and you've contributed maybe 0.02%, I don't think that that'll be over 10,000 sats even towards you. So I think this is around $10. So you have to basically contribute $10 worth of Bitcoin mining power to the block over however many days it's been up. So in 66 days, you have to contribute around $10 of mining power towards the current block if it is found. I also don't know how the payout ratio is going to work. Like if you take all your miners off the pool now and it finds a block, do you still get a reward for that? For example, you have the hash rate here, the massive spike, and that was hit by one user, I think it was, that was holding all that hash rate. If the pool hits a block, are they going to get a massive amount of this hash rate? I don't really know how that payout necessarily is going to work, but it looks like we'll have to wait around 3 years to actually see if that does pay out. So I'm not necessarily holding out for a block on this pool. I just kind of thought it was a good idea, just in case it did hit a block, and then it looked like there was a lot of hash rate hitting the network, but it's subsequently gone down. But as I said, we had all of our miners on there apart from the Avalon Nano. So also somebody can let me know in the comments how that actual payout works. I haven't read fully into it, but I'm assuming because you contributed at least to the block, and if you pull off some of your rigs, you're still going to get sats based on how much you've submitted to the pool. So that's kind of what we're actually testing out right now. And maybe in the future, maybe 3 years down the line, there might be a payout in here that we could withdraw, but I'm not holding out for much realistically. So as I said, the Avalon Nano was never mining to this pool. The hash rate kind of got up to around 17 highs of 20 terahash, but averaged out at about 17, 16 terahash. And then we've taken this off, so that was the Nerd QX coming off. That was just for a thumbnail photo. And we also took the Zyber 8 off, which brings us down to around 10 terahash across the board. We're also going to be taking the Hex off, so that's going to be 3 terahash taken off. And that will give us around 7 terahash from the Nerd QX and the 4 Bitaxe miners that we have. So you might be wondering what we're doing with the rest of the miners. Well, firstly, the Avalon Nano, I'll kind of address that. That has been silently mining away on the Brains pool. So if you've seen our video of pool mining maybe 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago from now, there was a video where we were mining to Brains pool and seeing how much we could earn in a day. And we actually left the Avalon Nano on there, if you can see there. So the Nano 3S, the rest of them were on there, but they obviously weren't contributing. But the Avalon Nano was contributing, and that's at around 3.44, or that's alert limit. I don't know what that means, sorry. But the hour range is around 5 terahash, as you can see there. And on the dashboard, you can kind of see it averages out. I think maybe the lowest that it gets down to, well, that's 3.34, but maybe that's a reset. Also, I don't like the fact that you can't monitor the kind of share difficulty that Avalon Nano is actually hitting in the OS. So if you go to their dashboard, there's not really much functionality of kind of what the Avalon Nano is doing. It just tells you the fan speed, the temperature, what pool you're directing it to, things like that. But you can see that it actually registered at 7.5 terahash, which is interesting. This is currently on the medium mode, so it's not on the high mode. It's on the medium mode because the efficiency on medium mode is basically the same as the efficiency on the low mode. But the power connector, or the power supply for the Avalon Nano, is not great and doesn't allow you to kind of steadily give you 20% of the power supply left over on the high mode. It registers, I think, 120 watts. It registers around 130 watts, and the power supply is rated to 140. So there's not much room, and there's probably some kind of power throttling going on if you are using the high mode on the Avalon Nano. So that's why it's on medium mode. Plus, you also don't want to burn out the chips, and I think people running it at high mode is going to burn them out eventually. So that has been pool mining for quite a while, and you can see the rewards that we've been mining here. So today's mining reward, or let's just go for estimated profitability, or yesterday's mining reward, was around 26 cents. So not a massive amount, and they also take fees there. And then we also have our all-time rewards, which is around $6.72. You can also see what we've earned every day. Here is 239 sats. I'm wondering why this is 920 sats, but that seems kind of high just for one day. And then the rest of them have been pretty equal as we go down there. There hasn't really been an uptick. I would assume that there would be an uptick with the hash rate dropping off. Just a little bit at least, because it did drop off around 50%, but it doesn't seem like that's reflected in the mining rewards that we see here. So as I said, when we go to rewards, you can see kind of what we're getting per day. That was just the chart, but overall payout, I think if you click here, it'll tell you. Overall payout is 6.72, and the payout rules, if you set one up, lightning payout maybe, or maybe on-chain. I'm trying to see what the payout rules are set to in terms of how much you can actually get before you, I think it's $20 that you have to hit, whatever the threshold is, to actually pay out into a wallet. So we're not really close to $20 in my opinion, but let's go back to mining. If we kind of extrapolate that out and we go to, where were we, rewards, let's just see yesterday's is 26 cents, and let's just estimate that we have around $13 left, divided by 0.26, and that gives you around 50 days to actually get payout on this pool, which is fine by me because it's just being left in the background. Also, I don't think that it's ever going to hit a Bitcoin block, and there's also no way to see if it's going to hit a Bitcoin block on the Avalon Nano unless you're actually mining to a Bitcoin pool or solo pool. So that's the main reason that we're stuck on here, just because you can't even monitor if it is going to hit a Bitcoin block or not. And I just don't really want to bother with the Avalon Nano anymore, just because the functionality is not great. But it's going to take us 50 days to get a payout, probably on average on this pool, if we let the Avalon Nano just run on its own on there. So that's what was going on with the Avalon Nano. And then when we're bringing it over to other miners that we're switching across, so as I said, we have all our miners here. This one's currently unplugged, as you saw at the start of the video. But in terms of the other miners, so these four are going to stay on Parasite Pool. We have changed the Zyber 8, so if we click in here, also I don't know why it says timeout occurred for the Zyber 8, but when we click into there and go over to pool settings, you can see that we're currently mining digibyte. And this is to solohash.uk, just because they have the best connection to where we are. Our odds are around 1 in 69, but I also think that it's pretty higher than that at current odds. The current difficulty of the digibyte network is around 400 million. It dropped down drastically, but it's been bouncing between 400 million and around 800 million. So I'm assuming that we're going to hit one of those relatively way before the next 1 in 69 days. I think that this calculator might be technically wrong when it comes to that, but if we click on solo hash, you can see, oh, the difficulty is 1.39, so maybe, but I also think that it's going to be way easier to hit 1.39G on the Zyber 8, just because it has a lot of hash rate, so around 6.58 terahash on average, and our best difficulty is 5.92, so way above the difficulty of digibyte. But our shares since system boot is 72 million, so that was put over or switched over 5 hours ago. And then we're also going to move the Bitaxe hex over to solo hash as well, but if we're clicking here, we're actually going to move it over to the Bitcoin Cash pool. So the difficulty on Bitcoin Cash is 531. I don't think anyone's actually hit a block yet. As we can see, there's 0 blocks found, but there's 76 on this pool. And the best share is 121G. So not even near, realistically, a Bitcoin Cash block. but I've seen a lot of people are mining digibyte just for regular income. There's also quite a lot of hash rate on this pool. So when we click in here, there's 1.04 petahash just on one of these pools, and the best share is 45.22G. So that's actually quite a lot in terms of petahash that is on just the digibyte network. So it's interesting to see. We would be, at least with the Zyber 8, probably, I think that's us by there, maybe. Let's try to see if we can find it. Let's go here. So it's QQM. We can go back. QQM. So that one's us right there. Number 12, I think. And then, as I said, we're going to be moving the hex over to, so I think this is the hex. We're going to be moving that over to the Bitcoin Cash pool that you see here as well. Just because we're switching it up, we might as well switch it up a little bit here. So it does say difficulty too low, 76 above target and 253 stale. But we have submitted over 500,000 shares. I wonder how many shares these have submitted. So that's been going for 2 weeks. And if we click open onto one of these, so I haven't updated this, so it's only 324. Or maybe that's the rejected shares by there. I'm not sure. So that's our highest shares that we submitted in terms of the Bitaxe hex. That's around 500k. I don't think we've ever got to 1 million shares on any of these without resetting them, just because we constantly reset for different video ideas and for taking thumbnail pictures. So yeah, that's the plan for mining going into the future. As I said, the Nerd QX and the rest of the Bitaxes are going to stay on Parasite Pool, or maybe potentially in the future we'll move the Nerd QX onto a different coin. There's not really many options for different coins. Digibyte is the only one within range that you can regularly hit. And if we go down here on mining pool stats, we can kind of see, I know I've explained this or shown this quite a lot, but this will show you, no, let's not log in. I want to go to pool overview here, and then SHA-256 and sort by the difficulty. But you can see here there's a bunch of coins that you could mine. Digibyte has a low enough difficulty where you can hit it quite regularly on a Bitaxe. Anything that's higher, like a fractal Bitcoin, that could take you quite a while to actually hit 4 Gs on your Bitaxe. And then eCash obviously could take you quite a while to hit 10.48. Same with Bitcoin SV at 50 Gs, which mainly means that anything under Digibyte is too easy to mine, and anything above it, apart from these two, are kind of too hard to mine on a Bitaxe or one of these kind of solo miners that you see here, either the Hex or the Zyber, whichever one. And then the reason that the Hex is on Bitcoin Cash is just in case, but I don't feel like we're going to hit anywhere near into the 100G range anytime soon. I don't think we're even close to it across all of the miners. You can see here our best difficulty ever hit is 25.9G, and that was on the Nerd QX++. Remember, it is all luck. So any of these miners could hit a block in the next second. That would be a T value. But it's all up to luck, and probability kind of states that it's not going to be any of these miners. So that's why we're kind of playing around with them in these videos. So overall, that is the plan. We're going to kind of stick it on there. There will be other videos. I just thought we'd mess around with it, kind of give it a play around to see if we could hit any blocks on different coins. The only reason I'm not using mining Dutch and using solo hash is the connection. If I wanted to, I could stick all of them onto mining Dutch and point each one to an individual coin, and then we could do a video like that if you wanted to see that in the future. But also the payout for mining Dutch, I think, is around $400 payout, at least in Bitcoin. But that's the main reason we're not using mining Dutch, because the payout is too high, and then the payout for solo hash, I believe, is just payout when you hit a block. So we could be hitting blocks in the future. Anyway, that's the plan. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and make sure you like the video and subscribe for more content like this.